This is it, the infamous bridge in deepest Siberia. 1,600 feet long, rotten wood beams, no railing. If you don't pay attention, you fall.
I'm really scared.
It's just the same for the locals, only they have to drive over it on a regular basis, by car. We also feel like trying that. We travel 3,700 miles to the east, into Siberia. A propeller plane lands in the small town of Taksimo every 4 or 5 days.
Definitely a lot more pleasant than waiting at the baggage conveyor.
If there is an end to the world, then it's probably not very far. First, we do a little research around town. What can people tell us about the world's most dangerous bridge out in the middle of the Siberian wilderness?
It's a 500-meter-long, ludicrous bridge that hasn't been repaired in 35 years.
It's really dangerous because you have to move inch by inch.
It's dangerous here in Russia, of course. Look at the state of our streets here. One wrong move and it's all over. You won't be going anywhere.
But some are forced to risk the dangerous crossing on a regular basis. Nico, our reporter, meets one of them. Alexei. He wants to take us there today.
So this is our car for the bridge? Yes? Is it suited for this? Yeah, it has four-wheel drive.
Regardless, will it be able to make it?
How many times have you crossed the bridge? I cross it pretty often. Okay, let's go.
But why does Alexei always put his life on the line? What is there on the other side of the river?
Nina. She's definitely the love of my life. My heart's made up. I'm sure I won't be letting her go, and she won't either.
A few years ago, Alexei met Nina on the internet. Just 100 kilometers separate the two. Not far away, considering this is Siberia, but they're separated by the world's most dangerous bridge.
It's about 37 miles to the bridge. That's around 1.5 to 2 hours.
Almost 2 hours for just 37 miles? We find out quite quickly why this takes so long. And is this the renowned bridge?
That's Russia. Everything's wobbly. Every second plank's wobbling here.
Crossing over this fragile wooden construction is difficult. This is just a small taste of what lies ahead for our team. Because the objective, the Vitimsky Bridge, is much higher and much longer.
Nobody worries about fixing things around here. There are some roads where you can drive at 6 miles an hour tops.
The engineers who built this bridge were clearly not very skilled, and we find plenty of proof for that. Shortly before we reach our destination, Alexei suddenly stops.
What's this place? This is a spiritual place of the Buryats, the local inhabitants. Here we pray or give the gods a few small offerings. That's the pro tip.
This is supposed to give us good luck. If it helps us make it alive across the bridge, we usually throw 2 rubles as a tribute in the snow. And there it is, the bridge over the Vitim River. The bridge considered to be one of the most dangerous in the world. A railway bridge runs parallel to it. It looks much more robust than ours. The state that it's in.
So, that's the infamous bridge. Yes, it's well known. Many in Russia know about this.
More than 1,800 feet long, over 65 feet high, but just 6.5 feet wide. And everything is held together by a few rusty steel tubes. 33 years ago, it began defying the infamous Siberian weather, which goes down to minus 50 degrees. For this purpose, these sloping bullets were installed to help stop floating pieces of ice at the end of each winter. On top of that, a few rotten wooden beams.
Can you walk across the bridge? Yes, either on foot or by car. In winter, you can also drive across the river. Over there, or where? You have to find a safe path. It's only possible to cross the bridge in summer. I think this is pretty obvious, but people have fallen down, I assume. Of course. I'm really, really scared. And it's freezing cold.
The other bridge is exclusively for trains. In addition, most people need their car once they're on the other side. And it doesn't help that only one train per day goes in each direction. That's why commuters take the rickety car bridge, and some in winter even if the river's frozen over. The rule's simple. One false step and it's over.
Are there any precautions you need to take before crossing? Yeah, you have to inspect the bridge closely to see where the new holes are, for instance. You can't leave before doing that.
Crossing on foot, a cold minus 4 degree Fahrenheit breeze runs down your back. The bridge looks worse than expected. Can that be crossed by car? Before crossing, we ask the bridge guard Yura. He lives next door alone with his 7 dogs. Nobody knows the bridge better than Yura. He works as a weatherman and geologist and has lived here for 12 years.
This is a car bridge from the old days. They totally neglected it, especially since they built the railway bridge next to it. Now, only 3 or 4 cars pass over it every day.
Yura issues warnings via the internet if wind and weather make crossing impossible. To the fact that the bridge is so rotten, he offers a simple explanation.
In the middle of the river is the border between 2 regions, and they don't cooperate. That's why nothing is ever done there.
He gives us one final piece of advice before we cross.
Hope dies last.
Our team and Alexei face the 1,870 feet long bridge and the Siberian cold. Maximum speed, 6 miles per hour. And then, an involuntary stop.
I have to check everything that's up ahead. I don't know what state it's in today. I'm coming with you. Okay, but be careful.
Even when getting out, it's a game of inches. Snow, smooth wooden planks, and to make matters worse, no handrails.
You can't just drive, you have to inspect every plank.
For months, negative-degree weather and icy wind make even the footpath dangerous.
Everything's covered with snow here. We have to be careful. There could be holes everywhere.
Always inches from the edge. We hope to have not accidentally passed over a hidden hole. We start again. Alexei's experience is only partially helpful.
With every car that passes, it gets worse and worse, especially when trucks drive over it. They make a real mess.
This is exactly what will do us wrong now. Again, we have to stop. Fortunately, no oncoming traffic, because there's no clear right-of-way rule. If you are less far, you have to return for fairness. Alexei noticed just in time the broken spot in the middle of the bridge. We cannot continue driving in this direction, but Alexei has to go on the other side. Absolutely, but how? Turning is impossible here.
We can't continue. We can't carry on now. We have to drive in reverse. We get to drive in reverse because we can't get any further. Oh, great.
980 feet in reverse over the most dangerous bridge in the world. Over and over again, the tyres get stuck in the snow. Despite the dangerous wind, we have to drive most of the time with the door open. The bridge was built in 1984 in Soviet times. Since then, the main thing has always been getting across, somehow. Safety is secondary. It has had no maintenance in 33 years. Crossing in reverse, life-threatening. But Alexei gives it his best.
We didn't make it, but that was pretty much the most intense ride I've ever been on. Man.
But Alex to go with us to the other side. A quick call to his girlfriend. Today it will be a little later. There are no other bridges. The only alternative is the brittle ice of the river. That too is dangerous at this time of the year. Holes in the ice can break under the car. While Alexei's old struggles forward, our high-tech camera drone fights the freezing wind. In a week's time, a river will flow here again. But 9 months a year, there is snow and ice instead. Bearing that in mind, we risk crossing over the Vitim River, hoping that the ice cover won't crack. Made it. After a long and risky crossing, we finally arrive on the other side. The most dangerous bridge in the world didn't take us to the other side, but at the end of the day, and without coming to any harm, we did make it to our destination, the house of Alexei's girlfriend. He can finally hug his future wife. What does Nina think of his risky journey? At the beginning, I was always very worried about him. Now I'm more okay with it. He loves these routes, the roads, the extreme danger. Nevertheless, Alexei is growing tired of the risky trip over the Vitim River.
Our dream is to live together, to build a house in another city, and of course to have children. That's the biggest dream of all.
And how many?
Well, 2 or 3.
Yes. But tomorrow, Alexei must first go home, on the other side of the river, and then surely back and forth a few more times. Where there's a will, there's also a way, even if it leads over the most dangerous bridge in the world. The most dangerous toilet in the world. It's also quite difficult to reach. A long flight and countless hours by car are just the beginning of an adventurous search for clues. We are in Cheongur in southern Russia, near the border region with Kazakhstan, China and Mongolia. The village of Cheongur lies at the foot of the Altai Mountains. We rely on a tour guide recommended to us by locals. Achba grew up here and knows the area like the palm of his hand. Is the ascent to the toilet dangerous?
The Altai Mountains are no laughing matter. They can be dangerous. There are rocks and cliffs everywhere, so you shouldn't drop your guard.
Since we're total amateurs, he suggests we hike on a horseback instead of on foot. We took extra riding lessons for our objective, the most dangerous toilet in the world.
He's had enough. This way we'll never arrive.
The professional has to intervene. The 19-year-old regularly guides tourists through the Altai Mountains, but tours to the most dangerous toilet aren't the most common. 3 horses belong to Achba and they are his everything. The 19-year-old has been riding since as long as he can remember. As expected, he knows how to handle them, unlike our reporter Nico.
I'm really scared.
Things gradually get uncomfortable on the steep path. Bad memories are awakened, because this is our second attempt to visit the most dangerous toilet. On our first, we had much bigger problems than a stubborn horse. "5 months ago, the same place, just not the same weather. On the contrary, little did we know what kind of challenge traveling to the world's most dangerous toilet represented. We're set to meet with mountain guide Maxime and ask around in the shop.
Have you heard of the toilet?
Yes, I've been there.
Is it well known?
Obviously,
Why?
because it's up in the mountains in a remote location. We are on our way. In the very first hour of the ascent, temperatures drop to a freezing -7.6 degrees Fahrenheit.
How many times have you brought tourists? Around 15 times. I don't keep track.
Maxime seems to know a shortcut and checks if the ice of the frozen river is thick enough to cross. We rely on our tour guide and follow him through the deep snow.
Sorry, but no one's ever tried harder to get a toilet selfie. I'm perfectly sure of that.
The Altai Republic is sparsely populated. We started in Cheonggur. On our tour, we'll have to travel around 12 miles and an altitude difference of 5,570 feet to make it the most dangerous toilet in the world on the top of Kara Turek. But the ascent becomes mission ascension. What looks like a nice walk on the snow is a real ordeal at temperatures of now -40 degrees Fahrenheit. We have just finished 3 miles. It'll be dark in an hour. Our situation up here is becoming increasingly worrying.
It's fine. You can do it. We'll save a lot of time if we take this route. What's so good about it? I'll fall down. Come on, I'll help you. I'll take your backpack. You don't understand. My shoes are size 13s and I weigh almost 220 pounds. Every step is hell. I slip with every step. Don't panic. Stay calm.
Meanwhile, we have strong doubts about Maxime's abilities as a mountain guide. Has he underestimated the situation? Cinematographer Yuri can barely walk. He can't feel his toes anymore. The camera batteries have stopped working in the icy temperatures. We can only film with our phones.
I can't stand this anymore. We'll never do this.
But it was too late to turn back. To the night, we wandered through the snow. As if by some miracle, we eventually found a wooden hut. A goat herd gave us shelter and some hot tea. Our cameraman Yuri had severe frostbite on his toe. After we'd been able to warm up overnight, the relief was great the next morning because Yuri was doing better despite the pain.
He is our lifesaver, Arkan. He took us in and fed us last night. Without him, we wouldn't have survived out here. I was in bed when I suddenly heard screaming in the night. I looked out of the window and saw them in the blizzard.
We interrupt our visit to the toilet and take cameraman Yuri to the hospital with his injured foot. Back in summer and our second attempt to reach the toilet. At least the weather conditions are much better this time.
So, back there is the hut that saved our lives last time.
Lucky that they managed to find it, because there's less than 1 inhabitant per square mile in this region. People, let alone tourists, seldom get lost here, and they certainly don't do so on the way to visit a toilet.
Have we survived the worst, or is there still much more ahead of us? We've passed the worst already.
3/4 of the way to the bathroom is behind us. No comparison to the horror trip we went through in January. Today it's 60.8 degrees Fahrenheit and thus 50 degrees warmer than at that time. Nevertheless, there's always something worth complaining about.
It's incredibly far. And in the meantime, my butt hurts a lot as well.
There are no more trees at 7,800 feet above sea level. Cameraman Yuri is also glad the toilet is already inside.
We're almost there. I can already see the mountain top. At last. And look how far we've come.
We've reached the destination of our exciting journey. Despite serious research, we never thought this ascent would be such a challenge for our team. The highest weather station in Russia is located on the summit. The notorious toilet at 8,500 feet above sea level is, as a matter of fact, the outhouse of this lonely station. We meet the person who uses this toilet, meteorologist Dima.
Do tourists come here too? Yeah, that happens. They usually only come to shoot photos.
So there's a toilet, but where does Dima buy his toilet paper? Once a year, a helicopter lands with food and other supplies for the meteorologists. Dima has been working here for 5 years. Weather stations like these are always in remote locations to compare the extreme readings with those of normal weather stations. In addition, it also serves as an important hub for air traffic, providing data to different flights.
I've heard it can be really dangerous when there's too much wind and you want to go to the bathroom. Yeah, sometimes strong winds prevail here, especially in winter. The wind is crazy. And you still go, or do you wait it out? If you've got to go, you've got to go. How did you come up with the idea of building a toilet on a cliff? There are rocks everywhere here, so you can't just dig a hole. And so they built the toilet over the edge.
Actually, Dima works here with 2 colleagues, but they're currently on their week-long annual leave visiting their families in the valley. Before going to the most dangerous toilet in the world, reporter Nico is a bit scared. Only a few boulders serve as a counterweight. Not exactly reassuring. Nevertheless, the quiet location with its breathtaking view seems to be very stable, since the toilet has been here around since 1939.
It can't be worse than the ascent. This thing is so askew. Anyways, you guys have to go out now.
Well then, good luck. Meanwhile, we enjoy the breathtaking view.
So, after all the effort here, I've really earned my selfie with the infamous toilet.
For our reporters' needs, this toilet will do. The title, Most Dangerous Toilet in the World, is completely justified, because the journey to this place was probably the riskiest walk to a toilet we have ever witnessed. The air is thinning. The gravel track, narrower. The most important thing up here, stay on the trail. The further up, the faster the temperature drops. If you're stuck without help. On his way, our reporter will be catching his breath more than once.
Oh, the air.
How far will we go on the highest road in the world? Berlin, 2 weeks earlier. Our reporter Marco has only a rough idea of what to expect still, but he's preparing rigorously. Mastering the highest road in the world requires special altitude training, 2 months of it every day. Without these exercises, Marco wouldn't stand a chance even by car, because at over 16,000 feet above sea level, the human body works at half of its normal capacity.
I need a break. Because at certain points, you just can't breathe. You can't breathe.
The training room is enriched with nitrogen. This reduces the oxygen content and that roughly simulates the air conditions in the Himalayas. People with low tolerance get into trouble starting at 6,560 feet, and Marco has to be almost 3 times as high. 2 months later, the first stop, the city of Leh in the north of India. From here, it'll be about 50 miles to reach the highest road in the world in the Nubra Valley. Even here, reporter Marco and interpreter Mahand are at 11,400 feet above sea level. Leh is one of the highest cities in the world. Therefore, the two first have to wait here for 2 days to get used to the altitude difference. Altitude often causes nausea, shortness of breath and dizziness. As a precaution, Marco and Mahand are out in search for oxygen tablets and go looking for a pharmacy. This shop is both a grocery and a pharmacy.
Take one in the morning, one in the evening, and with a lot of water. It takes out a lot of water, so you have to replace your water with it.
We meet the man who is ready to take us on the highest road in the world. Farmer Ashal. His mission, to buy food for his home village in the Nubra Valley.
Hello. Hello. Nice to meet you.
Ashal still needs hoses and cement for a new house being built in his village, and hay for the horses. Then we get going. The dangerous mountain route leads from Leh 37 miles to the north. Always north, to the Kardung Pass, the highest point of the route, also called Death Zone. Then 19 miles further downhill to Ashal's village in the Nubra Valley. Actually, there are only 55 miles ahead of us, but the journey takes a whole day if everything goes right. It is already noon. From 7 o'clock in the evening onwards, it's too dark to travel on the mountainous road. But after a couple of miles, we can't go ahead.
There's an army convoy up ahead. That means there'll be a long traffic jam here.
Knowing his way around, Ashal tried to avoid the heavy traffic by cutting through a small parallel street. If he doesn't, it'll be too late to proceed. We are out of the city and can finally hit the road. The conditions are good, for now. Everything coming up will be an uphill battle.
We're to reach 6,500 feet within the first 2 hours. The road is so narrow that only one car can pass at a time. And it's already a pretty steep way down. They tend to hit the gas in the bends here.
Then, another problem our reporter did not expect.
After this corner, you have to keep camera inside.
And why?
Because the union will not allow to shoot.
We have to shoot with a hidden camera first. Actually, the road is still in India. But it's on the border with China and Pakistan. And it's a military security zone since the other two countries both have claims over this area. Time and time again, there are violent skirmishes.
So they will check the permit?
Yeah.
Passport and documents?
Yes.
Yeah. Should I come with you?
No, it's okay.
No?
No.
Since the military isn't the biggest fan of foreigners around this area, Ashal prefers to go alone. India has the second largest army in the world, nearly 1.5 million soldiers, and most of them are stationed here in the border region due to the unstable political situation. Ashal has been gone for over 20 minutes. Slowly, we begin to fear that there are bigger problems. This is military territory. The soldiers can deny us permission to travel further without even giving us a reason. But Ashal does manage to convince them. Half an hour later, we have their clearance. Now we have to hurry up even more. In addition, the sky is clouding over up above us. As soon as the road is closed and we'll have to go all the way back. Meanwhile, we have reached the 0-degree mark.
Half of the year, you will see snow on the carbon level. Only 3-4 months might be. Not any issue.
The higher you get, the steeper it gets. Except that here, unlike back home, there are barely any guardrails. If a vehicle starts to slide, that's pretty much it. Again and again, motorists suffer deadly accidents because they swerve off the road. Another danger to keep in mind, oncoming traffic. The road is practically a one-lane road.
Before every bend, the driver has to honk because you can't see if there's a truck or a car coming the other way.
Above all, truck drivers tend to overestimate their driving skills, leaving the rest almost off the road. Our team has gone past the 3,200 feet altitude mark. There's no time to lose, but having said that, Marco and his interpreter will soon have to take a break to get used to the new altitude yet again. Otherwise, the risk of collapsing would be far too great. We reach our resting area, the last stop before the so-called death zone. It's probably one of the highest canteens in the world, at 14,700 feet above sea level. Here, the human body can only absorb 65% oxygen. It's also 26.6 degrees Fahrenheit. But it feels like -4 degrees, thanks to the icy wind up here. Interpreter Mahant struggles with the unfamiliar temperature as well. It never gets cold in his native South India. The team wants to gather its strength one last time. An important tip at this altitude, eat light food. If the meal is overly rich, the body would be too busy digesting the food, and that consumes energy that it can't afford to waste up here.
Many don't get along with the altitude. Then there are the winding and bad roads. People panic. It makes their heart beat faster, which in turn makes things even worse.
We still want to fill up our water supply. Drink a lot of water, said the pharmacist, because altitude sickness is comparable to body dehydration. But it's easier said than done.
We wanted to buy water. With this? It's frozen.
We can't buy any water, it's all frozen.
And in this freezing cold car, it wouldn't melt any quicker. We have to make do with what we have. Slowly but surely, we reach the death zone, and the weather is only getting worse.
It's pretty cloudy. I think it'll start to snow soon. If that happens, we'll have to wait here for 3 to 4 hours. We can't continue until the military has cleared the road.
To sleep at this altitude would be pretty much the worst idea possible. As long as we are 16,400 feet up, the oxygen content will only be 60%, and it's 14 degrees Fahrenheit. Close by the Pakistani border, at this dozens of military bases. Ashal has to give way again and again for the heavy trucks. It is only 1.8 miles to the highest point of the highest road, but they're using all of it.
Don't drive so close to the edge.
The path is icy almost all year round. That's why most accidents happen on this section.
Mud and rubble. It really shakes you up. And it stinks of gasoline, because gasoline can't burn properly here, since there's very little oxygen in the air.
Shortly before the highest point of the road, there's an emergency.
You see, they're stuck.
We decide to help each other. To be up high this long is dangerous, and up here you have to stick together. But our first attempt fails.
Suspension is not so high this way. The body is touching the ground this way, and the tire will not rise.
There's no service here that could help. Only loose gravel from under the snow. The effort further complicates breathing.
Oh, the air!
The highest point is now only a few hundred feet away, but the street is ice smooth in many places. We can only go on by foot. 15 minutes later, some colorful flags mark the highest point. We are 17,980 feet high. The human body can absorb only 50% of the available oxygen at this altitude, and it's a freezing 5 degrees Fahrenheit. The sensation, however, is much colder. Due to the strong wind, it's about minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Our reporter Marco is finally reaching his breaking point.
17,982 feet. Here we are. And here's a bit of protection from the wind. I'm a bit lightheaded as well.
You shouldn't stay here for more than 20 minutes, even if there's the so-called oxygen cafe for emergency at hand. We prefer to continue because we haven't done the hardest bit yet.
Take your nail color.
Nails color.
White. Okay,
White,
please
yeah.
don't expose more.
Blue hands a little bit and white color.
Blue hands. That means lack of oxygen. Not a good sign. From now on, the road goes downhill. That too is risky. Many become overconfident on the way down and pay for it. Marco is at his limit. The mountaineer Ashal makes the altitude seem like nothing.
It was pretty smooth, but we did it.
Half an hour later, the village before dark. Ashal has transported the important food safely. His wife is happy. Until next month, which is when her husband will have to go again on the highest road in the world.